Bruce, I was looking through the PMBOK yesterday.
You were?
And I noted that there are millions of inputs, outputs, tools, and techniques. Do you expect us to memorize all of them?
Well, I don't, and PMI kind of used to, back when they had a lot of questions on, is this an input to this process or an output or a tool or technique of that, and that was kind of crazy. And so what I created for students a few years ago was a cheat sheet where you could go through each, it would just list every process, all the inputs, all the tools and techniques, all the outputs. And if you wanted to spend hours doing that, you can memorize that. And so I would tell people when you come in to take your exam, they give you 4 sheets of paper, take 2 of them and write from memory all those inputs, tools and techniques and outputs, so that if there was a question about that, you'd be ready to answer it. Maybe fortunately, there's not a lot of those questions. So you could spend 4 hours memorizing all that, and there may only be 2 questions. And so I now use a different technique in my class. Rather than teaching them what each one is and where they all belong, how they're all categorized, I teach them a basic difference between a tool and technique versus an input or an output. And the basic difference is an input or an output is something you can hold or touch or press or something, versus a tool or technique is a thing that you do. You usually can't hold it. Like, for example, if you looked at the process, perform qualitative risk analysis. The inputs, risk management plan, that's a piece of paper. A scope baseline, also a piece of paper. Risk register, a piece of paper. Then the EEFs and OPAs, which we talk about in another thing. The outputs are the project document updates. Once again, there are things that you can touch. Let's compare those to the tools. Risk probability and impact assessment. This is a thing that you do. You're assessing these probability impacts. Risk data quality assessment, risk categorization. These are all things that you do. So what I teach people is to look at the question, if they ask any question like that, is this which of the following is a tool or technique in blah, blah, blah. Rather than worrying about where it actually belongs, find out, is it even a tool? If 3 of the answers, which have to be incorrect, if 3 of the answers are inputs or outputs just based on the fact that you can hold them, you can just eliminate those and find the one that remains. And so sometimes you can narrow it down to the 1 correct answer, maybe only narrow it down to 2 out of the 4, but you probably can narrow it down significantly and then take your best guess.
So inputs and outputs are tangible items, whereas tools and techniques you cannot touch or do or anything.
Yes. So yeah, exactly. You can touch tools, you can touch inputs and outputs. Good.